The wind was dry and hot that morning. Dust moved across the ground like smoke. Rancher John Mallory sat on the old wooden porch of his house. His coffee was still warm. The land stretched wide in front of him, flat, brown, and quiet. His. Cows were far out near the fence. Everything looked normal, but then he saw something strange. A girl. She was running down the dirt road, barefoot, fast. Her dress was torn, and her hair was messy and full of grass. Her face was red with dust. She looked scared. John stood up slowly. The girl ran straight toward him. She was no more than 9 or 10. "Sir," she cried out, "please don't let them take me." "Please, sir." Her voice was high and shaking. Her little feet bled from the rocks on the road. John stepped down from the porch. His boots hit the dirt with a thud. He looked at her carefully. Her eyes were full of tears. He didn't say anything right away. He just nodded and stepped in front. Of her, like a wall. Behind her, 2 men were coming on horses. One of them wore a black coat. The other had a silver badge, a lawman. The girl hid behind. "John." She was shaking badly now. The horses stopped a few feet away. The marshal tipped his hat but didn't smile. "She's a runaway," he said. "Her name's Elsie Carter. She escaped from Wilton Orphan Home. Judge says she has to go back." John looked at the child. She was breathing hard. Her arms had bruises, small ones. Her knees were scratched. He turned to the marshal. "What's she running from?" The lawman shrugged. "Rules, maybe. Maybe chores. Kids these days don't like rules." John's voice was calm. "Or maybe someone hurt her." "That's not your concern," the marshal said. "This is legal business." John looked the man in the eye. "She's on my land now. You got a warrant to come take her?" The lawman's face turned hard. "I don't need one. She's a ward of the court." "Not without papers. You don't," John said. The marshal shifted in his saddle. "Are you refusing the law, Mallory?" John didn't move. "I'm refusing to hand over a scared, hurt child to 2 men with no papers." The girl clung to his coat. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't let them take me. They hid us there. They lock us in the barn. It's dark, and we're not allowed to talk." John's jaw tightened. His hand twitched near the old pistol he kept under his coat. He didn't draw it, not yet. But he didn't look away. "You heard her," John said. "You ride on back to town. Tell your judge he'll need more than a badge to take her from me." The marshal stared at him for a long moment. Then he spat on the dirt. "You'll regret this." John nodded once. "Maybe," he said, "but not today." The men turned their horses around and rode off slowly. They didn't look back. When they were gone, John turned to the girl. "You all right?" She shook her head. "No." He knelt beside her. "You hungry?" She nodded. He picked her up gently and carried her inside his house. Her arms were thin as sticks. Her face was tired. She leaned against his chest like she hadn't rested in days. Inside the house, he gave her some bread and warm milk. She ate slowly, like she was afraid it would be taken away. After she finished, she sat near the fireplace, hugging her knees. "My name's John," he said. "You can stay here for now." She looked up at him. "Will they come back?" He nodded. "Yes, they will. Will you send me back?" He looked out the window, where the dust was still moving. "No," he said. "I won't." She stared at him for a long time. Then she whispered something he would never forget. "You're the first person who didn't let go of me." John said nothing. He just placed a blanket over her shoulders. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting a red light across the land. Trouble was coming, and John knew it. But something in his heart had changed. He had lost a daughter once. Long ago, he wasn't going to lose this one. The next morning, the sky was gray. It wasn't rain. It was just heavy with something else, like the land knew trouble was on its way. John Mallory was up early. He fed the cows and fixed a broken fence post. But his mind wasn't on the ranch. It was on the little girl still asleep in his old guest room. She hadn't moved much during the night, only cried in her sleep. She mumbled names John didn't know. Maybe other children. Maybe her mother. Maybe no one. She came out around breakfast time, quiet, her hair brushed with her fingers. She wore one of John's old shirts. It hung down past her knees. "Sleep all right?" John asked, cracking eggs into a pan. She nodded, then shook her head. "A little," she said softly. "Bad dreams?" "Yes, sir." John didn't ask more. He knew pain when he saw it. He handed her a plate and let her eat in peace. Later, he showed her around the ranch. She stayed close to him, always watching. "The road. You like horses?" He asked Dot. She gave the smallest smile. "Never been near one." "Well," he said, patting the big chestnut moray, "this here's Clementine. She's old, but kind." Elsie reached out, slow and nervous. The horse sniffed her hand and didn't move away. The girl's eyes lit up, just a little. They spent the day working. Elsie helped carry water and collect eggs. She didn't talk much, but her shoulders relaxed, just a bit more than before. At one point, John heard her humming a song. It was a soft tune, broken now and then, but it made his chest ache in a good way. That night, as they sat by the fireplace, John finally asked, "You want to tell me what happened back there? At the orphan home?" Elsie didn't speak right away. Then she whispered, "They locked us in the barn. We weren't allowed to play. Sometimes Mr. Green would hit us with his belt. Even the small ones." John's face turned. Hard. His jaw clenched, but he stayed still. "Did anyone help you?" He asked Dot. She shook her head. "No one came. We screamed once, but they told us if we did it again, we'd be sent away to worse places. Some kids disappeared. Nobody asked." John stared into the fire. The warmth on his face felt cold now. He had seen evil in his time. War, hunger, greed. But what she said hit him deep. "You're safe now," he told her. But even as he said it, he heard the sound of hoofbeats outside. A knock came, sharp and heavy. He stood, looked out the window. 4 men this time. One of them was the sheriff himself, not just a marshal. The law had returned. John opened the door slowly. Elsie ran to the back room without a word. She knew this was about her. "John," the sheriff said, tipping his hat, "we need to talk. You got a paper this time?" The sheriff held up a folded sheet. "Judge's order. Says the girl must return to the care of the county." John took the paper and read it. The words were clear. It was real. "She told me things," John said, quiet but firm. "About beatings. About children disappearing. That's not your place to investigate," the sheriff said. "The court handles that." John looked up. "And who protects them until then? Who listens?" The sheriff sighed. "John, don't do this. You've always been a good man. Don't fight the law." "I'm not fighting the law," John said. "I'm standing between it and a child who's already been failed once." One of the deputies stepped forward. "You gonna shoot us over a girl, Mallory?" John's hand didn't move, but his voice turned cold. "If I have to." A long silence fell. The sheriff looked at John, hard, tired, but not angry. "We'll give you 2 days," the sheriff said finally. "You take her to town yourself. Or next time we come back, we won't leave without her." John nodded slowly. "That's fair." The men rode off. Inside the house, Elsie peeked out from behind the curtain. "Are they gone?" "For now," John said. "But they'll be back." Elsie looked scared again. "What will happen to me?" John knelt beside her. "I don't know yet. But I promise this. They won't touch you. Not while I'm breathing." That night, the wind howled louder than before. A storm was coming. Not one made of rain, but of men and law and danger. And John Mallory, a quiet rancher who once lost everything, was ready to fight for something again. Not just for the girl ... but for what was right. 2 days passed like heavy clouds. The air was dry and thick, and every sound on the road made Elsie jump. John watched the fences, the hills, and the sky. The sheriff had given him time. That time was nearly gone. John had not taken Elsie to town. Instead, he rode into Wilton the day before and found the judge who signed the paper. "You don't know what you're doing," John said in the judge's office. The judge didn't look up from his desk. "The girl is property of the county. She's not property. She's a child." The judge raised an eyebrow. "The law says she belongs in the system. The system is broken," John said. "She told me what's happening in that orphan house. Kids being hurt. Maybe worse." The judge waved his hand. "I've heard stories. No proof." John leaned forward. "Give me 1 week. I'll find proof." The judge looked at him for a moment. "You have 3 days. Then the child is returned." John left with fire in his chest. 3 days. It wasn't much. That night he told Elsie. "I'm not giving up," he said. "I believe you," she whispered. Next day, John went to the old Wilton church, where the town preacher kept a list of families who had adopted from the orphan home. John spoke to 2 couples. Both said the same thing. Children sent to them came with bruises. One boy had scars on his back. Another girl never spoke again. John wrote every word down. He made notes, dates, names. He visited the doctor in town. "Next, Doc," he said, "you ever treat a kid from that orphanage?" The doctor frowned. "Plenty of times. I stopped asking questions. The law didn't care." John stared at him. "Well, now I care." He collected the doctor's quiet. Testimony, too. He was building a case. But it still wasn't enough. Back on the ranch, Elsie helped clean the stables. She didn't ask questions, but she knew. They were running out of time. That evening, as the sun dipped low, John sat on the porch. Elsie brought him water and sat beside him. "I don't want to go back," she said softly. "I won't let them take you," he replied. "But what if they come with guns? Then I'll stand between them and the door." Her small fingers found his hand. "Why are you doing this for me?" John looked at her. His voice was quiet. "Because someone should have done it for my daughter." Elsie blinked. "You had a daughter?" John nodded. "Long ago. She died before she was born. So did her mother. I'm sorry." He gave a small smile. "So am I, but maybe I got a second chance." That night, John heard horses. He didn't wait for a knock. He opened the door and stepped outside. The sheriff and 5 men stood in the yard. The judge was with them this time. "You had your time, John," the judge said. "Hand her over." John didn't flinch. "I have statements, families, a doctor, the girl's story. All of it is written down. Stories aren't proof." The judge said. John reached into his coat and pulled out a bundle of letters. "Take these to the governor if you want." "Or I will." One deputy stepped forward. "We don't want trouble." John raised his chin, then stopped protecting it. The sheriff sighed. "We've got a warrant. Don't make us force it." John didn't move. From the house, a voice called out, "Stop." Elsie stepped onto the porch, trembling but standing straight. "If you take me back, I'll run away again. And I'll tell everyone what happens there. And next time, someone will listen." Everyone stared at her. John's heart swelled with pride. The judge's face darkened. But then the sheriff stepped between them. "I think that's enough," he said. "We've all heard the girl, and we've seen what John's done. He's a better guardian than any home." "You'll lose your badge," the judge warned. The sheriff looked at John, then at Elsie. "Then I'll lose it for the right reason." The judge left in anger, and the others followed. The sheriff tipped his hat one last time. John let out a long breath. He turned to Elsie. "You were brave," he said. "I learned from you," she replied. And just like that, the ranch was quiet again. But something had changed. She was no longer a girl hiding from the world, and John was no longer just a rancher. They had become something stronger, a family. Months passed. The leaves turned gold, then brown. The air grew cold. Winter wrapped itself around the ranch like a quiet blanket. But inside the house, there was warmth. Elsie was no longer the scared, thin girl who once ran barefoot through dust. She laughed now. She fed chickens, brushed horses, and read by the fire. She helped John with cooking, and sometimes she even rode Clementine, the old Mari, across the fields. John had built a small room for her beside his own, painted the walls himself, put in a little window so she could watch the stars. They were not blood, but they were family. One evening, as they sat together near the fireplace, Elsie asked a question. "Am I still in danger?" John looked at her. "Not anymore. But what if they come again?" John shook his head. "You're not going back. You're not theirs now. I made sure of that." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a paper. It had a seal at the bottom. "What's that?" she asked. "It's from the governor's office," he said. "After everything that happened, the judge, the sheriff, your words, they sent investigators to that orphan home, found proof, shut it down, arrested the man in charge." Elsie's eyes widened. "They really shut it down?" John nodded. "Every child was moved. Safer places now. Some found real homes," she whispered. "Good." He handed her another paper. "This one's more important," he said. She read slowly. It was adoption papers. Her hands shook. "You want to keep me?" John smiled. "I already have. This just makes it legal." She jumped forward and wrapped her arms around him. He held her tight. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. From that day on, she was Elsie Mallory, no longer a number in a broken system, no longer alone, no longer afraid. 1 week later, the town of Wilton held a public meeting. The church was full. People whispered about the children, about the orphan home. Some didn't believe it. Others were angry, not at the truth, but at how long it had been hidden. John stood at the front, not to make a speech, but to show his face, to stand behind Elsie as she walked to the pulpit. She was small, but her voice was clear. "My name is Elsie Mallory now," she said. "I used to live in that place you all ignored. I was hurt there. Others were too. Some kids didn't make it." The crowd went silent. She continued, her voice shaking but strong. "I begged people to help. Most turned away. But one man didn't. One man stood in front of me when no one else would. And now, I'm not scared anymore." She looked at John. "I'm not untouchable because of paper," she said. "I'm untouchable because someone loved me when it was hardest. Some people cried. Others looked down in shame." The sheriff stood and tipped his hat. "I failed you," he said, "but I'll never fail another child again." Back at the ranch, life returned to normal. Well, a new kind of normal. John was older now, his back a little slower, his hands more stiff. But his heart had new strength. He woke up each day with a purpose. He wasn't just a rancher anymore. He was a father, Elsie helped run the land. She planted vegetables in the spring. She helped with branding in the summer. In the fall, she read books to John by the fire. In the winter, they shared stories and cocoa. One day, years later, a visitor came to the ranch. He was a young reporter from the city. He had heard about a rancher who defied the law to save a little girl. "I want to write about what you did," he told John. John looked at Elsie, now nearly grown, standing tall beside her horse. He said, "I didn't do anything special." The reporter smiled. "She says you made her untouchable." John looked at Elsie and back at the man. She was always untouchable. She just didn't know it yet. The reporter asked one last question. "If you could go back, would you do it again?" John nodded. "Every time." And so, the story of Elsie Mallory, the girl who once cried, "Please don't let them take me," spread across towns, then across counties. People whispered her name in schoolrooms and church halls. Laws changed. Orphan homes were watched more closely. Families began to listen, truly listen, to the voices of lost children. But back on that quiet ranch, none of that mattered much. What mattered was this: a child had been saved. A good man had stood his ground. And a bond was formed that not even time could break. They called her untouchable. But the truth was simpler than that. She was loved.